she's so sweet.
Some developments on crime policies in New York City. After mounting criticism from police and other groups, Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg releasing a memo revising two of his most controversial policies. Robberies involving a knife or gun will now once again be treated as felonies. Will this be enough to help the spike in crime? Retired New York Police Department Lieutenant Joe Cardinale joins me now. Great to see you again, Joe. Thanks for being here. Forgive me for being just a little bit skeptical that Alvin Bragg has turned 180 degrees and is now going to be tough on crime. What do you think?
Well, he's going to come full circle and go back to what he originally did. What he's doing is he's picking and choosing. He planned this ahead. He said, well, I'm going to get some kickback on it, so these are the crimes we're going to let them have. And that's what's happening. And it's coming from Albany as well. When you have the bail reform situation and you have his policy put in place and you have, once again, cop killers being released from prison, all right, this is all one big plan for them. So, yeah, he can walk it back all he wants, but he's definitely the one that's going to be the problem with this because he should be prosecuting all the crimes for all the people all the time.
Well, we just have an example of this isn't a cop killer, but one of these young rappers who got smart with a gun, shot a cop, and he was out within a week paying $15,000 cash on a bail certificate, and he's back on the street. He's done this before. He I don't know, God forbid, but there is a good chance that he might do it again. So while this DA is talking tough, he's still letting the criminals out on the street.
Well, that's my point. That this guy is actually out on the street. What is it going to take for him to actually kill somebody, whether it be a cop or a citizen, for him to actually be kept in jail? I mean, for God's sakes, he should have been in jail to begin with, and he should have stayed in there. But these policies are letting them out, and the criminals know that, and the criminals brag about it. So, I mean, this is the point in society where we've come today when it comes to policing. It changes every day, and the politicians just camouflage it with their policies, and then they'll come out on TV and they'll sit with the president, and they'll all sit at that one table at one PP, and they'll say, this is what we're doing, and it's just for that moment. Then they get out of the room, they go, all right, back to business as usual. And that's what's happening across America today.
You know, the real crime of it is that prosecutors and cops used to work together. They used to support each other. They had each other's back in terms of trying to crack down on crime and get the criminals off the streets and protect innocent civilians. I mean, it's not rocket science. You're tough on the criminals. You try to protect the innocent civilians. Now we are hearing stories. Maybe you know more about how New York works, and I'm sure this works the same in other places where they have radical prosecutors. That prosecutors are actually changing police reports to go easier on the perpetrators in order to get them on a lower charge. Have you heard anything about that?
Let me tell you something, David. We used to have CompStat meetings, and if one of the commanders changed anything, they were transferred, they were demoted, whatever it took, that's what they had to do. You know, that's what they would do to them. So for the DA, yes, the DA is changing his language for the prosecution, and they're picking and choosing what they want to prosecute. So if there's a gun involved, they're going to say, yeah, but you know what? Let's just tone it back a little bit and push it so it conforms to my policy, and I'm able to let him out with a clear conscience for him. All right? But policing was what you said. Always a 1-2 punch. The DA and the cops together making a case. All right? And it was always that if the DA felt it wasn't enough, he told the cops, we need more evidence. We need to do this. And they would make a stronger case. You can't even present the case to the DAs today because they're picking, when it gets to them, after you do all the hard work, they're going to say, now I'm declining prosecution. And this kicks back to the governor's office because DAs have immunity from civil liability. So it would be incumbent on the governor to say, you're not doing your job, I'm taking you out of there. But the governor's on board with them too. So where do you go for this? You know, you can't go to the federal government because look who's running the federal government.
Well, I just want to get this in here because the president was in New York this week talking both to the governor and to the mayor about crime. But there are questions about whether he really gets what's going on, and whether his whole administration gets what's going on. Jen Psaki, the White House spokesperson, spoke about crime a couple of weeks ago on a webcast. Let me just play that and get your reaction. Roll tape.
On Fox is Janine Pirro talking about soft on crime consequences. I mean, what does that even mean, right? So there's an alternate universe on some coverage. What's scary about it is a lot of people watch that.
She doesn't know what soft on crime means. Do you?
I know what soft on crime is. Listen, Jen Psaki is running a cesspool of ignorance at the White House. All right, she absolutely camouflages and covers everything and sugarcoats everything that's presented to her just to conform to what they want out there for the public. Soft on crime is exactly what you and I just discussed. All the DAs on board, put in there by Soros, and you just go over there and say, you know what, what's going to happen next? Where do we attack it next? You need to fight the crime the way we used to fight crime, not with a political agenda behind it. When the crime is there, fight it. Look what's happening in Chicago. Look what's happening in New York. These numbers are going to continue to skyrocket, and you're not going to get a handle on it until you get the 1-2 punch you need. And the mayor knows what he has to do, all right? He has to distance himself from the people that are telling him, don't do this, don't do that. Let his police commissioner do the job that the police are trained to do and get out there and fight the crime the way we have to. But when they're handcuffed and they're told what to do, and you have an appointed position that could be taken away at any time, you're going to do what this mayor wants, and this mayor is going to do what the political party wants.
Wow. Even though we should remind folks, he is a former cop himself, the new mayor of New York. Hopes were high when he came in that he would get tough on crime, but so far we haven't seen. The actions haven't matched the talk. Quickly.
I'm starting to think that he forgot about the uniform he wore, all right, because he would never do these things to the cops that he's doing.
Yeah, let's hope he hasn't forgotten. Lieutenant Joe Cardinale, good to see you, Lieutenant. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it.
Anytime, David. Thank you.
Joining us now is former National Security Advisor to Vice President Mike Pence, retired U.S. Army Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg. General Kellogg, thank you for joining us. Do you think Iran will become nuclear capable? And if so, what happens then?
Yeah, thanks, Trey. Thanks for having me on. Yep, they're on their way. I think you're going to see a nuclear breakout. And what I mean by a breakout, they're going to have enough enriched uranium to produce a nuclear weapon easily within the year. They're currently producing enrichment about 60 to 70%, 90% gets weapons grade. They admit doing it, and there's no way we're going to stop it. Look, it's a fool's errand to try to get them back into the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the Iran nuclear deal. Once we started lifting sanctions, we just lifted another one called CivNuke, which means now that third parties and other countries can actually help them develop their nuclear capability. And Ali Shamkhani, who's their chief of staff in the National Security Council, said nobody has the right to tell us to do what we want to do with nuclear development, and either peaceful, or what concerned me was the word he used, or security means. So they're heading that way. The Israelis are correct. We ought to be thinking right now, what do we do when they do have a breakout? Because it's going to destabilize the Middle East.
All right, I want to go around the globe with you. What do you make of this agreement, this no limits agreement between Russia and China?
Yeah, it was a smart move on Putin's part. What he did is he protected his flank primarily against sanctions. He just made a deal with the world's second largest economy. So he's got his economic side pretty well buttoned up. And he's also got himself buttoned up within the Security Council of the UN, because now there are two members of the UN, both Russia and China, that can veto anything that happens in the Security Council. And he's caused a tremendous disunion within, I believe, within the world by pushing, and we mean the Chinese, by pushing that arrangement and that agreement. Putin's played it masterfully.
I want to play a clip for you that includes some perspective from a U.S. Senator who happens to be on the Intelligence Committee, and get you to react on the other side.
Right.
We are in the window. Any day now, Russia could take military action against Ukraine, or it could be a couple of weeks from now, or Russia could choose to take the diplomatic path instead. The key thing is that the United States needs to be and is prepared for any of those contingencies in lockstep with our allies and partners.
This is the single greatest threat Europe has faced since the 1940s. If we now live in a world where you can just go in and take a country because you claim it or parts of it belong to you, and you can do so militarily, well, we've entered a very dangerous period in human history once again.
General, I want to be clear. Marco Rubio is not in the group of politicians who is equivocating on what the U.S.'s position should be, but I really never thought I would hear U.S. politicians and or conservative commentators kind of equivocating on whether the U.S. should side with Ukraine if Russia invades it. I mean, am I missing something? I would have thought that would have been an easy decision for us.
Well, this is a decision that we should have made long ago. Look, Ukraine's not a NATO country, so they don't fall under Article 5, which is an attack on